What's going on, everybody? All right, Monday episodes are so much fun because that's where we hear from all of you and your thoughts on things. And in this particular episode, a lot of the responses are going to be, or a lot of the time of the video, we'll be hearing directly from you and your thoughts. Because last week's question, to me, is a very special question. It's what was your first goal card, your first Grail card, the first card you just had to have? And then fast forward to now, what is the current card that you just have to have? You know, when we go through life, life, when we go through life, so many things are about setting a goal. It's about looking toward the future. I remember sitting in church as a kid and seeing the little girls dressed up in their Easter outfits with their Easter bonnets on. I literally remember this and thinking, man, I can't wait to have daughters someday. I can't wait to have my own kids and go to church on Easter Sunday. Those were things I thought about. And then when my first daughter's born and I'm holding her, it's just like overwhelming because there's this thing that for years you just wanted to have. And it's the same thing with getting married. It's the same thing with buying a house or getting the job that you really want. Like, we have these experiences in life, and all of the most important ones, all of the most memorable ones, are things that we thought about for years before they happened. And that's part of what makes them so special. If we had a Grail card that we wanted and we could just easily just write a check and send it off, that wouldn't be nearly as much fun as having to strategize about, okay, how am I going to make this happen? Am I going to win the auction? Am I going to be able to move these funds over here to make this potential purchase take place? Like the looking toward it, the strategizing toward it is part of the fun of it, all experiences in life. Anything. You know, all those hours in the batting cages, you know, and for me, my dad used to throw me batting practice in the backyard with little peaches. He'd throw me peaches and I would just hit and hit and hit and hit. And then you get in the game and then you get the big hit. And all that work, all that time, all that preparation made it that much sweeter. And with everything in life, studying for a test, when you study really hard for a test and then you just absolutely ace that test, oh man, that is such a great feeling. And while I don't think that getting a goal card is on the same level as having a child or getting married or buying a house, the whole process and the whole thought of having something that feels unattainable, that you have to work towards, and then when you actually make it happen, it's awesome. And that's one of the reasons I think it's so important. And I encourage people to be patient with your collecting. Don't just go get the first copy of the card that you can potentially afford. Get the right copy. It might take more time, but part of it is that hunt. Now, the first gold card, and I'm going to share a couple of mine. The first card that just blew my mind and absolutely took me and my collecting to the next level is my desire for the 86 Donruss Jose Canseco rated rookie card. And I have this one. This one's in a 9. And I probably bought this 10 or 12 years ago. I wasn't heavily back in the hobby yet, but I was always following the hobby. I was always checking eBay listings. I was always picking up things a little bit here and there. And finally, like 10 or 12 years ago, I was like, man, I still want that Jose Canseco rated rookie card that in 1988 really was like the peak of incredible. And getting that card was just bonkers. And it's not worth much. I mean, what is this? Maybe a $50 card? I have no idea. The fact that it's in a 9, does that matter? Not at all. I just wanted a nice looking centered copy. And that's a super special card in my collection. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I got one signed. Jose was signing it. He signs everywhere. I got the Grail card signed by that athlete in person at a card show. It's just, even though those don't have tons of value, they have incredible amounts of meaning. And the reason for the meaning is because of the memories associated with them. And again, this hobby, there's something special about it because of the history about it, the lifelong nature of it. It's like being a golfer. You know, the first time you pick up a club, the first time you step on the course, you got a long ways to go. But when you finally hit that score you wanted, when you finally break 100 or you break 90 or you break 80 or you shoot par or you shoot under par, those are super special moments. And I'm thankful for having been able to do all those things. I've shot under par once. One time I shot 71, and about 5 times I've shot 72. And man, I put in years of work to make that happen. The next Grail card I had was my 84 Fleer Clemens update. Again, not graded. Why is it not graded? It doesn't need to be graded. I picked up this exact one, this one right here. And I've told the story a couple of times on the channel. Probably I got this in, I would guess, 1990. Yeah, I'd say 1990 is when I got that card. Been in my collection ever since. This is one of the last cards I'd ever sell. I can't imagine a circumstance in which I'd ever sell this card. And then the Mark McGwire Olympic card. Now this one, I picked up this card maybe 3 years ago. It's in a PSA 8 holder. Again, that doesn't matter at all. But it's centered. And it's nice looking. I think I paid $12 for this card. Literally. Shipped. And that card is like, that was just an unattainable card as a kid. And then, of course, the one I picked up more recently, I picked this up, 3 months ago or so. I finally got the Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck after years and years and years of wanting one. And I still, honestly, even though I don't remember what I paid for this one, $50, $60, something. It's in an 8 holder. I can't believe I have one. And it's not like some crazy card, but it has crazy meaning. It has crazy meaning. And that's the whole point of these gold cards. A little bit older, I started really getting into the 49ers. 49ers were really good as a kid. 88, 89, 90, just unbelievable teams. And I just had to have a Jerry Rice rookie card. No chance that was going to happen. This one is in an 8 holder. Looks like a 10 to me. Might as well be a 10. Doesn't matter if it was a 10 or an 8. I absolutely love this. I bought this a few years back. Still can't believe I own a Jerry Rice rookie card. I mean, the kid in me can't believe I own a Jerry Rice rookie card because it just seemed impossible. And the last one I'll show from my childhood Grail cards, and I'll show some of my adult ones, was the Joe Montana, the GOAT. I don't care what anybody else says. You guys can tell me that Tom Brady's better. You can tell me about his Super Bowls. You can tell me about Otto Graham being better in his Super Bowls. You can tell me about MVPs. This guy will always be. These two guys are so much of my childhood. And I absolutely can't believe I have their rookie cards. I mean, this, look at that. Look at that card, that Montana. Okay, it says 8 on it. Again, might as well be a 10. Cards never leave in my collection. I still can't believe I own these cards. And combined the value, I don't know, $500 maybe? Maybe? But I can't believe I own them. And I love them. And that's what we're about to go through is we're going to look at some of your responses on your childhood Grail cards and your adult Grail cards. And I'm going to put pictures of each on the screen as we go. So if there's a card that you're not familiar with, you can see which card they're referring to. Let's check them out. Another great video, Craig. It is so humbling to hear all of those stories. Thanks. My first Grail card as a kid was the 1992 Donruss Elite, Ken Griffey Jr. Wow, was that card something in 1992. I could never pull an Elite, let alone a Griffey Elite. In fact, I still don't own one. I have two Grails now. Number one, a 1956 Topps Jackie Robinson, and number two, the 1954 Topps Hank Aaron, both nicely centered with great eye appeal. Greg, like you, with the Banks card, these two have to be the right one. Finally, while we're at it, I have to throw in the 52 Topps Mantle. I mean, why not? In response to next week's question, the card I wanted desperately for decades was the 1954-55 Topps Hockey, number 8, Gordie Howe. First impressions are very important to collectors, and, for me, my 10-year-old impression of the inaugural Topps Hockey cards turned out to be the best impression to me. I was in love with the look of those cards after getting a small bunch of duplicate cards from my boyhood friend Ross back in 1961. None of those duplicates was a Gordie Howe card, unfortunately. They were unique because they were slightly bigger than the baseball cards that I usually bought at the corner convenience store. I think Ross got his cards from his older brother, but they were hard to find in 1961 because Topps apparently only produced a very limited number for sale in the Canadian market. But the public wasn't aware of that back then. Over the years, I lost touch with Ross and those treasured cards, but my sons showed an interest in cards back during the junk wax era. I started thinking again about those 54 Topps cards, and I decided to try to put a set together. I hunted for the next 15 to 20 years at card shows and local card shops assembling the set, and finally I got the elusive Gordie Howe in 2010. Most of these raw cards were only in good to X condition, but that didn't matter as the hunt and journey was very nostalgic for me. Then, during the boredom of the pandemic, I decided to upgrade to a graded set, and last year I picked up a PSA 8 Gordie Howe from Heritage Auctions, the last one for the 60-card set. I just have one question, Greg. Now what? Early Mantles? I'm afraid I don't have 50 years left. I wanted to hop in really quickly on this one for a couple reasons. First, my guy Golden Slumber, up north of the border in Canada, great guy. One of the earliest supporters of my channel, this channel, is my buddy Golden Slumber. But there's something in here I don't want us to overlook. There's something in this comment that really resonated with me. And it's the fact that it took him so long to get the set and the cards from the set that meant so much to him and that were such an early memory for him to complete it the way he wanted it to be completed. And it took years and years and years. I mean, this is a 50-year project that was recently completed. From the time the desire for the set first happened to the time that the final card for the collection in the look that scratched the itch was finally done. It was decades. And that's part of it. I mean, anything that really truly matters to us, anything, we're willing to put in work, we're willing to put in time, we're willing to be patient, we're willing to find a way to make sure that we don't just give up on something that matters. And that's one of the things I do really respect about set builders. And I'm building a set right now. I know sometimes I say, why do people do sets? I don't really understand. I'm building a set right now. You know, my Allen and Ginter Pirates of the Spanish Main set. And it's a fun project. And part of this hobby is not just accumulating. One of the most fun aspects of the hobby that I hope that a lot of us don't forget, it's not having the card. It's the experience of reaching the goal. It may not have been that much fun on the driving range, trying to figure out how to hit my long irons, trying to figure out how to correct my slice, trying to make more 4-footers on the putting green. There were times that was not that enjoyable, but the payoff after you've worked so hard to make something happen, that is so special. And so for any of us out there who have a goal card, have a Grail card that we really want to accomplish, that we really want to add to the collection, I would say to you, it's not just adding the card. It's getting the right card, and it's the process. We have to remember to enjoy the journey. I want to be retired. What? What did you just say, Greg? Where did that come from? You want to be retired? Yeah, I want to be retired. And if I wish every day were the next day so I could be closer to retirement, I don't want to skip the next 15 years until I retire. Now, I want to not have to work. Don't get me wrong. But I don't want to miss all the things that are going to happen over the next 15 years. If I just keep wishing to be done, then I'm going to miss out on some pretty cool stuff. And if we just start going out buying cards without much thought, then we're missing out. And that's part of the reason I really enjoy buying cards in person more than online. Now, sometimes if a card is rare enough, we don't have the luxury of stumbling into a table at a card show where there is one. But it is more memorable when you buy the card in person. When you buy a special card in person, my guess is you remember which show it was. You remember the negotiation. You remember the dealer. You remember seeing it. You remember all of that. But a lot of the cards that you buy like on eBay, and go, Greg, where'd this card come from? I go, I bought it on eBay. It was about maybe 3 or 4 years ago. But you say, Greg, where did this card come from? My 54 Topps Ernie Banks? Oh, 2024 National. Bought it from Ash. Paid $1,600. My dad was on my left. Darren was on my right. Mookie was walking up. Theo was walking up. Scott Ranger Studios was walking up. I can tell you every detail. So don't rush it. Enjoy the journey, because the journey is a big part of the hobby. Okay, let's go back to listen to some more responses. As a child, my favorite set was the 75 Topps football. It had all the stars I idolized as a kid. It's still my favorite set. In 91, when I started collecting as an adult, it was the first set I completed. Now my goal card is the 65 Namath rookie card. In the year I've been back in the hobby, I've seen 2 authentics sell for under $2,000. If I can't see the flaw, it's good enough for my collection. If you can't tell it's been trimmed or altered, why not? It's only being seen by me. Hopefully in the next couple years, it'll be mine. My dad was a part-time school bus driver for most of my childhood. Sometime in the mid-'80s, he drove one of the buses that took the local Little League teams to a Twins game. I vividly recall the Metrodome announcer calling out, "Kirby Puckett," right before Kirby blasted one over the left field wall. For the next couple of months, I couldn't imagine anything better than owning a Kirby Puckett card. Today, my dream is the Ernie Banks rookie card. I doubt that any card I acquire today will be as exciting as pulling a Puckett, Herbeck, Sandberg, Grace, or Dunston from a pack in the mid to late 80s. Craig to Greg, another great video. Thanks for the great content connecting all of us. My first Grail card was the 68 Ryan. My dad would take me to Angel Stadium in the 70s to watch him pitch. My dad would check the newspaper to see when he pitched because we rarely had good pitchers. Tanana and Ryan and 3 days of crying, Dick Enberg would say. Finally, I have been saving up for the Topps Grail, the 52 Mantle. I've always loved him as a player because everyone talked about how great he was after he retired. I'm sure it will end up being the beat-up bike spoke noisemaker type that I can afford, but there's always hope and determination. Great video, Greg. Resonated with a lot of us because so much of this hobby is tied up to nostalgia and memories. Much like I'm still a huge fan of obtaining autographs in person. The experience of being face-to-face and having an item signed specifically for you is what makes it special. I have a few UDA items, but otherwise my entire autograph collection is 100% from in person. Anyway, on this week's question, number 1, the Grail card as a kid was a 1985 Donruss Eric Davis rookie. At the time, for an 11-year-old, this card was expensive and pretty much unattainable. Of course, it was one of my first PSA 9 purchases when I got reintroduced to the hobby 15 years ago. Second Grail, which was a pipe dream and 100% unattainable, was the 1986 Fleer Jordan. I sold off quite a few pieces of my collection last year to finally get a super clean PSA 6. Sometimes I just stare at it, and the teenage version of me still can't effing believe it. No current Grail chase for me yet. And my dad writes, on my second go-around with collecting, my Grail card was the 58 Topps Mickey Mantle. The reason? As a child, the 58 set was the first one I collected, and Mantle was my favorite player. Now, my current Grail card, I think, would have to be the Red Heart Mantle. Love that card. Last week's question was a tough one, as there are a few cards that won't leave my collection. As for this week's question, the first big gold card I remember wanting was the 1960 Topps Carl Yastrzemski rookie. I bought it at the local flea market from a dealer I was friends with, and still am friends with, in the early 2000s, 2001 or 2002, and got a great deal on it. He thought it was a promo card, and I wasn't sure it wasn't a promo card. It was Yaz, so I wanted it. After a couple of emails to Beckett through an address in the price guide, including pictures of the front and back, it was confirmed to be a 1960 rookie. My current dream goal card is the 39 Ted Williams rookie card. Williams is the all-time greatest Red Sox player, the best damn hitter who ever lived, and a war hero who fought for his country in 2 wars. This next one says, great video as always, Greg, and some great responses. As for your question, I'm not sure I ever really had a Grail card until I got into vintage, which was only 3 years ago. Initially, that Grail card was a 1980 Rickey Henderson, which I ended up obtaining at a show. Now I know that doesn't seem like a crazy Grail card, but that was a card that I truly wanted more than any other. Fast forward to today and look at the difference. I have 2 cards at the top of my list that I consider my ultimate Grail cards. I want both just as much, and would be more than happy having just one in my lifetime. They are the 48-49 Leaf Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams. While there are 2 other cards that are much more expensive on my want list, the DiMaggio and Williams take precedence because I believe that I can obtain at least one at some point. Thanks for the video. This one says, hey Greg, thanks again for the great content. As for next week's question, my first dream card was the 93 Jeter SP. Being a Yankee fan and having Jeter break through during the most influential years of my life put that card in a different stratosphere. I had the pinnacle in Topps Gold, where he is throwing across the diamond, but was always thinking about that SP. Still one of my favorite cards today. My current gold card is the 1922 American Caramel Babe Ruth montage. In my opinion, this is the most beautiful and best bang for your buck Ruth cards. Being able to get the portrait along a full body image
of him holding a bat is stunning. Being a fellow Yankees captain collector, this is during his 1-year captaincy, which checks another box for me. Hot take. Gowdy's Ruths are overrated. Thanks again, Zach. Another awesome video, Greg. I really like the stories behind the cards and why people value them. It really brings humanity and childhood dreams into perspective. Then the adult mind that continues in the hobby with an adult mind. It becomes a very fascinating personal journey. The first Grail card I ever wanted as a kid was the Jim Brown rookie. The second, in your question, has always been the 1894 N302 John Dunlop anonymous card. It is the one card I've never had the opportunity to acquire. The few I have ever seen were not for sale and safely in someone's collection. Unfortunately, I think that ship has passed as there are so few and they are so expensive. I've come to terms with that fact, but the kid in me can still dream. This one says, I started collecting in 87 and my older brother began in 85. I remember being so jealous of his 85 Topps Gooden, Clemens, and McGuire, the Team USA card, and wanting them so bad. But I was 11 and broke. Today, it's the 48-49 Leaf Ted Williams, the most beautiful card ever, or the 53 Topps Satchel Paige. I've got 2 kids in college and 2 more behind them, so priorities? This one says, my first gold card was the 1958 Topps Jim Brown rookie. I bought it in 1998 at the Big Main Line Show in Pittsburgh. I saved and couldn't believe I'd pay $100 for a card. I'm down to needing 3 Football Hall of Fame rookies for a complete set, so they are all Grail cards at this point. Next up, the 48 Leaf Bednarik.
Have you all noticed what I've noticed? We just listened to about a dozen responses. We just listened to about at least 10 or 12 people share what their first gold card was and what their current gold card was. And with every single one of those that I just read through, they had a common theme. Did you notice that? The common theme was all of those was that the current gold card is an older card than the first gold card. A lot of these responses. The first gold card was a card that was something to do with the current players, the current sets, the current releases. You know, Dwight Gooden, Eric Davis, Roger Clemens. You know, my dad was in there and he mentioned one of the first cards he wanted was the 58 Topps Mickey Mantle, because the 58 Topps is the first set he collected and Mickey Mantle is his favorite player. But right now, his current gold card, above all else, is the 54 Red Heart, which, Dad, by the way, buy the card. Okay, don't slow play it. You got this. Go buy the card. When you find the right one, Dad, go get it. Don't worry about the price. But isn't that something? Isn't that something that so many of these now? Not every response is that way, and I'm gonna share a few more, 3 or 4 more responses. But other than the 3 or 4 that I'm about to share, every single response, the current gold card is an older card. Now, is that because our interests changed? Maybe. Is that because we have more money and those cards seem more attainable? Maybe. I don't really know. I do find it interesting, though, that as we get older, we are more interested in things from longer ago. That's interesting. Let me know why you think that is. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at a few more responses, and then I want to show you some of my gold cards. Let's take a look.
This one says, my first dream card was the T206 Ty Cobb portrait with a green background. I collected T206s with my father. When I was around 10 years old and the store in New York Had a whole binder of them, all raw. Then, one day, someone bought everything and I didn't know where to get the others. My current dream card is a higher grade 53 tops Mantle, just because I want it to be centered and clean. No surface issues. Of course, that'll be a dream for a while. This one says, "Hi Greg, great video as always. Thinking back, my first Grail card as a kid was probably the 33 Gaudy Babe Ruth. Now, as an adult, I would say a high-grade 54 tops Hank Aaron and a 51 Bowman Willie Mays are my Grail card chases."
All right. So those last couple were the only couple in the whole video where the more recent card, the current goal card is a more recent card, which again is interesting, but it's also, if you look at those cards, all of them were old and all of them were iconic. I mean, and let me go back to a second, that first one of the two, which was the Ty Cobb, the T206s. I mean, getting into this hobby with his dad, collecting with his dad. How many of us can look back to who is the person that we first kind of learned cards with? Now, some of us completely learned it on our own. You know, some of us had a mentor. The mentor might be a friend, it might be an older brother, it might be your parent, your dad, your mom, whoever it is. But that's part of, I think, the connection here. Whenever you are participating in any sort of hobby, and I've used golf, so I'll use golf again. You know, the fact that I got to golf with my grandpa, my granddad, and my dad in the same group, the fact that I've gotten to golf with my daughters and my mom, and my daughters and my dad, the fact that I've gotten to share a hobby with generational, like family, people I care about, that's part of what makes the whole thing extra important and extra special. When you collected with a close friend, when you collected with a relative, and maybe they're not at the show with you physically, they're still with you. They're still with you. And it's a way to connect with that. The memories attached to anything that we do makes us feel closer to the people that we did them with. You might have new friends, you might have old friends, you might have new relatives, you might have old relatives that you've shared experiences with. But hobbies keep those memories and those relationships alive even when the person in question isn't. And that's something that I don't think that we can just overlook. It's a special hobby, and the evolution of our interests obviously is ongoing. You know, the moving around, the strategizing, the hunting, all of it makes it such a special hobby. And I'm truly in awe of how many people there responded and how many of those truly touched me. I really enjoyed reading through all of those. Now, for this coming week, I've got a different question. And it's a question that was posed to me from my good friend Orlando of A Collector's Dream. Orlando, I'm sure you know Orlando. If you know me, you know Orlando. Orlando is a fantastic person. I'm honored to call him a friend. I look forward to seeing him here in about a month in Strongsville. And I can't say enough good things about him. And he asked a question to me, which I'll share my thoughts on next week. But I also want to hear your thoughts on, all of you. And his question was, are we currently in the golden age of collecting cards? Are we in a golden era of card collecting right now? And what does that mean? Is this sort of like the best time ever to be a card collector? Or were there times that it was better? Has there ever been a better time than right now? Now, it doesn't matter if your answer is yes. It doesn't matter if your answer is no. I am curious in your thoughts, and I'll certainly share mine. And I think it's a great question that Orlando asks. But when you take a step back and you look across the hobby, has it ever been better than it is right now? Maybe, maybe not. But I look forward to hearing your thoughts on that next week.